So now you've been practicing getting even strokes and playing your up-down rhythm on the drum. Now, of course, a non-stop, undifferentiated thudding sound isn't terribly exciting, and it doesn't give your fellow musicians really a sense of where the beat is. So you've got to add some variety to really create a groove, and the groove is what really matters with the drum. The first way we're going to talk about doing that is by creating accents. So accents are just beats that have a little more emphasis than the other ones. There are a few ways of doing that, including changing the tone, which is something we'll get into later, or by making some of the beats louder than the others. To do that, you have to hit harder. And the way you do that is by moving your whole forearm instead of just the wrist. So you keep that steady 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And between the 4 and the 1, you bring your arm up just a bit and snap it down. The idea is that you're keeping the same, so your stick will have to travel a little bit further in the same amount of time to keep the beat steady, which means it'll be moving faster, and faster is more velocity, is more force, means a louder thump. You don't really have to overthink it, but the goal is keep your wrist straight and add those accents by moving more from your elbow and moving the whole arm. You want to snap down. So practice this down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, up. You want to keep that consistent, down, up, down. You don't want to make the beats uneven, you don't want to keep them differently spaced, and the following 3 beats after the first down should all be about the same volume. So keep practicing that. And a way to keep that beat consistent so you don't speed up as you're trying to play louder and softer is use a metronome app or something similar on your phone. I've got one, it's just called Metronome. I got it for free, but you can set it, say, 4. And we're going to use that downbeat. Every click is one accent for the 4. Let's slow it down a little bit just so you can play along. That's at 65. 2, 3, 4. Got it? Congratulations, you're playing a reel. Now, putting the accents on the downbeat is relatively easy. Getting the accents in an upbeat is much more difficult, but it's the same effect. With the downbeat is moving your elbow up a little bit, snapping down. To get an upbeat accent, or upstroke accent, you're going to go down and pop back up. So and you'll notice when you do that, instead of a 4-beat pattern, you've got a 3-beat pattern, which is your basic jig pattern. There are a lot of different types of tunes in Irish traditional music, but jigs and reels are the 2 most common. And a reel is based on a 4-note pattern, like this. So, whereas a jig follows a 3-note pattern. They're 3-note clusters like this. And so the reel, whereas the jig, So you've got that, the 4 or the 3. And once you get the hang of those two basic tune types, there's a bunch of other different ones, but they're kind of build on what you're learning here. So practicing the reel obviously builds on what you have. Getting the jig is probably going to take a little bit longer to get the hang of, but you'll get it. So down, up, 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 down, up. So another thing about practicing, obviously you want to work on these a bunch until you get those two basic patterns down. But one thing I would recommend, don't lock yourself in your room and practice for hours and hours on end. Do this a little bit when you've got some free time. Just sit down, or when you're watching TV or when you're doing something else, and practice for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, even just 2 minutes. Spend 5 minutes practicing a reel, go do something else. Come back, spend 5 minutes practicing a jig. The idea is that practicing more frequently throughout the day for shorter periods of time helps you remember and memorize and kind of build that muscle memory in your arms a little bit without wearing you out. Because if you practice too long, you get sloppy as you get tired. And another great saying is that you'll hear the thing saying practice makes perfect. That's not actually true. Practice makes permanent. What you practice, so if you practice sloppy over and over, you'll learn sloppy, and sloppy will stick. And then you have to unlearn sloppy to get better at it. So it's better to break your practice up into manageable chunks. Do it a little bit here and there throughout the day. Like I said, if you use a brush tipper on a notebook or something like that, so you're not making as much noise, or a pillow or a mouse pad. Those old neoprene mouse pads are great if anybody still has those around. You can do it quietly and just work on these patterns. So the idea is you want to practice cleanly and smoothly, consistently. The metronome will help a lot because there's a tendency to want to, when you do a louder note, to kind of give that more space because you're making more room. But that's bad because you want the notes to be consistent, the beat to be consistent all the way through. And you also don't want to start slow and speed up without being conscious of it. You want to be able to keep a consistent beat. So if you start slow, you want to keep playing slow. If you start fast, you want to stay fast without slowing down, which is where that metronome really helps. Now, once you've mastered that technique of hitting the drum steadily, getting a consistent sound and adding some accents without changing speed, then you can start move on to the next part of building a groove, which is learning to miss. So obviously I'm not talking about, being inaccurate or sloppy. I'm talking about deliberately leaving empty spaces in your beat pattern, which sounds like, maybe the easiest way to do this would be just like, so if you want to do for a pattern, the easiest way would just be to take a break. But maybe if you were playing a different type of drum where you're playing like with your hands, that would work. But because of the way you're playing the bodhran, you're constantly moving in an up and down motion. And the best way to cleanly leave spaces while keeping your stroke consistent is to keep your hand moving, not stop moving, but not hit the drum. So down, miss. And so you can do a real pattern like that and you'll get, which sounds a lot more interesting than just, or you can mix it up and add that. So leaving those spaces actually helps you create a groove. And there's kind of as you're learning, a tendency to want to just fill more space, and add accent or interest by just adding more notes, which, if you want. And that's okay if you're trying to show off, but if you're trying and I'll keep saying this over and over, your main goal as the Bodhran player in the session or in the band is to be the keeper of the groove. You are the low end, you are the beat, you are the foot tapping and the dance master. You're like the conductor in the orchestra. Also, you're like a conductor in the orchestra that an orchestra can work and function without a conductor. But a conductor can help them keep together and keep the groove and make them better. But if the conductor's not paying attention, he can also screw a lot of things up. So, try to be adding something or being helping or support the melody. You're not there to show off and play melody or flashy stuff. You're there to control the groove and keep things together and be kind of the binding that holds the rest of the tune and the rest of the session of the band together. At least that's kind of my approach to it. But, some people like to show off. Some people just play straight 4-on-the-floor beats for their entire percussive career. But anyway, so long way of saying that the best way to build grooves and build interest in the groove is not to add more, but to find what you can take out. So again, with that reel pattern, down, miss, down, up, down, miss, down, up, down, miss, down, up, down. And you can add, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, miss, down, up, down, up, down, up. And when you mix that with accents and with, louder notes and softer notes, it makes a very interesting pattern without being cluttered and busy. Where this is also really cool is what you can do with a jig pattern. So you've got your 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. But to make it a little more interesting, you can change the pattern to have less of a 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 and do 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, which is what you'll hear in a lot of different types of playing. You can even hear it, people will do it on the drum set. And the way to make that work on the Bodhran is down, down, miss, down, up, down, up, down, down, miss, down, up, down, up, down. Which when you play it at speed, and that's all by playing accents on the 1 and 3, then no accents on the later ones, and missing the 2. So down, up, down, up, down, up, down. I just messed it up there because I was trying to do it slow. And you'll notice when I say I'm missing the beat, when I'm actually playing, not doing a big swing down. I'm not doing down. Although as you're practicing and learning, it's not a bad idea to exaggerate the motion. Again, keeping it smooth. What you don't want to do is fall into down, up, down, down, down. Because then you end up having to reverse direction on every downbeat, which when we get to slip jigs we will cover, but you really want to have that missed beat instead of a pause. Alright, so practice that for a little while. That gives you 2 strong beats, and the first part of the 6-beat pattern. Now I've got to adjust my notes here. And kind of front-loading the pattern gives that heavier sense to the initial downbeat. So you get that which gives you a little more of I don't know, a little more bounce to the pattern, I guess. So you can do this. And you can also mix it up now that you have those different patterns. And you'll notice we're doing all this without moving your left hand at all. We'll get to that in a later video, but for right now I really want you to focus on building these rhythm patterns with your right hand. Let's see, what do I got here? Get that and that and that. And so another thing to keep in mind as you're experimenting with, filling in spaces, leaving empty spaces, accents and all that, is to listen to the tune. As you listen to the tune, you'll notice that sometimes the tune itself will have parts where the melody sounds busier or fuller, or some where they'll feel like there's a little more space. And what you want to do is you want to listen to that and adjust your playing to match that. If the tune has, kind of a little bit of open space to it, you don't want to fill in all that space with, loud or busy stuff. And if the tune's a little bit quicker or busy, and you'll hear a lot of times, you'll hear variation between if the tune has an A part and a B part. You'll hear, if the A part is lower down and a little more space, the B part might be more complicated and higher up or something like that. Which I should probably talk about the way that tunes work too before we end the lesson. Most Irish tunes have an A part and a B part and a C part. Well, an A and a B part, sometimes a C part. Which means that part of the melody will play once and then they repeat. So everything plays twice. It'll be A, B, B, then repeat the tune from the top, or if there's a C part, it'll play the thing again. So to give you an example, this is a jig called Out on the Ocean. So that's one through the A part. When you actually play it, and that's the A part twice through, and that's in a bit in the lower register. Now the B part will come in. And you notice the B part shoots up a little bit before it comes back down and kind of repeats the initial melody. And that's a pretty common way that a tune might be put together. So, the A part kind of sets the melody and the tone, and then the B part varies from a little bit and then brings it back down. And when you play it all together, etc., etc. And you'll play them through usually 3 or 4 times. And in a session, you'll usually go from one tune right into the next. But what I really want you to do, just one tune at a time, focus on listening to the tune, where it's busier, where it's a little bit more full and emptier, and how you can play along with it and feel the groove. Maybe even just sit and tap your foot a few times before you even pick up the drum, listen to it a few times. And at the same time as this lesson is going to be posted up on YouTube, I'm going to put one jig and one reel where I'll play each through about 4 times, along with a metronome track for you to practice along to. That'll give you a chance to, listen to, one, how the tunes go together with my whistle playing, and also give you a chance to play along with something other than just to the metronome. Although metronome practice is boring, but it makes you better. So, until next time, keep playing.